Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining me as I explore the wide world of pens. And we have a pen that a number of people have looked at, commented on, and I decided I would give it a shot. The price was good. Here's the listing of my purchase. And the delivery was a little bit strange because the envelope was pretty beat up, but it was delivered to the wrong house initially, and then eventually found it to my mailbox just a few days later. It's your classic WingSung box. Yes, it's a fine nib. It's your inventory label. You open it up and you'll find, again, what WingSung's been doing for many, many years. We have instructions. We have the pen with a nice little cardboard protector. You take it out, some cellophane protecting the pen, and we see the pen. So when I first felt this pen in my hand, I go, boy, it's very light, because I've been used to piston fillers which are more metal in them, thicker materials, and have more of a weight to them. But as we see later on in the video, the weight of this pen is actually within the range of, I think, the type of pen that are similar to this one. The cap comes off in, whoa, less than one turn. Very impressive. And we see a standard WingSung nib. They've been making these for a while. And the pen is a good size. Fits well in the hand without posting, but as you might imagine, it posts well, and it posts off of that blind cap, so you don't have to worry about dumping ink out when you might turn that cap when it's posted. It backs weights a little bit, but it actually adds a little weight to the pen, so I could write with this posted, but obviously, you know me, I won't. So we're going to explore this pen, take a look at its siblings, figure out what kind of ink we want. You know, it does have a nice slotted ink window in it. We'll get some background here to show off that ink window. There we go, got to catch that light right. So that's the pen. Interesting emblem at the top. It has a date of 2013. Don't know why it's there. If anybody does, let me know. So let's explore. Those that may not be familiar with the pamphlet that comes with the pen, this one is definitely just for this model. You can see the three bands in the cap. It shows that the nib and feed pulls out of the barrel. It shows how the piston can come out and the different parts associated with it, and that metal ring is loose, so you got to be careful when you take it apart. It talks about filling the pen, cleaning the pen. They just do a good job. Of course, you need to translate the Chinese to get it to be usable for us, but the visuals are nice. Here's that show you lubricating the piston when you remove it. So they did a good job, but unlike Mahjong, no English. So here are pens that I would put in the 626 family, and they're all Japanese pens, which I think has inspired the 626 design. I got the 626 with the flat ends. That also comes in rounded ends. Here's what that looks like. So these two here are Sailor Pro Gears. This is the slim model. This is the regular model. And we'll give you the weights of all these pens so you can put them in perspective. And the 626 is in the range of these pens. But it's a piston fill, where these others are a cartridge converter. Here's a Platinum 3776 Century, and here's a 1911 regular, which is the smaller version of the 1911. The 626 is the longest by quite a bit, even with the flat top. So if you got the rounded ends, it would probably be a few more millimeters longer, which would make it definitely the longest of this group. Girth-wise, it's more similar to the standard Pro Gear than it is to any of the other ones, which is nice. So it is a good size pen and certainly fits into this category. Now let's look at the nib and sections. So even though the WingSung nib is slightly smaller than a number 6, it certainly doesn't look out of place in this group. And the Pro Gear Slim has the smallest nib, probably more similar to a number 5. Obviously, gold nib, 21 karat gold nib, and there's a few 1911 standards with a 21 karat. Bought it from a Japanese seller. Of course, no one can mistake this platinum nib with this huge shoulder on it. Here's your WingSung nib. And not only size-wise does it look okay, it also visually is nice. And of course, Sailor is known. This is a Naginati Togi nib, and then just a regular fine in the Pro Gear Slim. The sections are all fairly similar. This just has this metal band at the bottom of the section versus these three have this metal band between the section and barrel, but this doesn't separate, so they couldn't really put a metal band there without doing something more than what they wanted to do. And one thing that I also forgot to mention when we were looking at them capped was they all have multiple cap bands at the bottom. You know, these, the Sailors and the Platinum are pretty much the same type of thin band at the top, thick band at the bottom, but the WingSung added a third band here at the bottom. So that's how they're interesting in that viewpoint. And if you go up to the cap, they all have that standard ring, kind of part of the mechanism to secure the clip to the cap. So they share a fair decent amount of design elements. Here's the 626. It's disassembled as I'm going to do it for this video. The feed and nib pulled out very easily. This is not a section that's going to unscrew. There's no nib assembly. As you can see, that metal collar covers everything. And if you put the piston all the way down, you'll see a flat spot there in that plastic piston. And if you come in with your classic WingSung wrench, which all of us should have, only cost a few dollars added to an order of your next pens, that fits just there, and it allows you to unscrew that piston assembly if that's what you'd like to do. We're going to take a look at this WingSung nib a little bit more closely later on because it's not a regular size. And we're going to go dark mode and take a look at how that cap is assembled. Stay tuned. So here we are in a little bit of a dark mode. And I bring in the LED exam light. Shows off that ink window quite nicely. It's a slotted ink window. Very nice. I mean, this pen has that precious resin feel, if I may be so bold. And an emblem at the top of the cap finial. It's a nice emblem. Matte gold plate. Just a classic clip. And if you look inside the cap, you'll see a nice plastic liner, a nice ledge for the section to seal up against, no screw. They did a good job there. And I would expect the nib to stay wet for a decent amount of time. Here's those threads. The engraving along the cap band is done well. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. This is on the lower end of a piston fill pen, so one must have expectations set for that level of quality. So I said the WingSung nib was not a standard size. So the number 6 nib is generally 35 millimeters in length. MBBS is 34. The WingSung nib is only 31 millimeters. But it's not a number 5, which I have over here, which is 28 millimeters. And also it's measured by the diameter of the section and we'll let you know what that is on the WingSung. But why did they come up with this weird size nib? I don't know. I think we need to look closely inside the barrel. And you'll see down at the bottom that piston, which I have all the way down, and that silver gold ring certainly makes this difficult for you to see. But there's nothing there. It's straight through. So the top of this feed is going to be exposed to all the ink. And it's that classic injection molded design, which I'm not a fan of, but most of the time they work pretty good. And you can always like run a blade down that channel, maybe to open it up a little bit more. I've already flushed and cleaned everything, so I'm comfortable with that. But this is a different type feed. A lot of other feeds, you'll see a little extension there that obviously accommodates a cartridge or converter. But this one just takes that ink from that barrel and brings it down to the nib. The other thing to notice is there's no key inside that section, which appears to be part of the barrel. So you can put that nib and feed in any place you want. So you may ask, why is there a slot at the bottom of the nib? Nah, I can't answer that. But this feed is cut out to accommodate that nib. So the nib only fits one way on the feed, which is good because you want it to line up with the channel that brings the ink down from the barrel. So it's a good design and helps you make certain that that nib is in the right spot when you put it back into the pen. Well, now that we've looked at this pen inside and out and compared it to some of its siblings, now it's time for some editorial comments, some dimensions, and a brief writing sample. You saw the writing in the beginning. It writes well for a fine nib. The pen can grow on you, but I still don't get over that lightweight. It took 1.6 milliliters of ink when I did the piston fill, so that's pretty good. And the fact that you can uncap it very quickly, 3/4 of a turn. The section feels good in the hand. Here's those dimensions. But this is, sub $20 US pen. Piston fill. For that, it's a good value. The other ones that I would be comparing it to are closer to $30 US, so that's 50% more in price, even though $30 is probably still on a low end for piston fill pens in today's market. Do I recommend this pen? Well, I'm on the fence on the pen. It's just my personal feelings on it. All the other pens that I have, this is probably not going to be one I'm going to reach for very often, even though I do like that sapphire ink. And that's why I would give it a pass. But if you want a low-cost piston fill pen that has classic looks, then this is the pen for you. It's going to be reliable. WingSung has been very good at making reliable piston fillers back to the what was it? 699. The first one I reviewed many years ago. I'll throw up a link. And I have some of those still in use 5, 6, 7 years later. So that's as good as I can say for buy pen, lasts a lifetime. So this is the ink that I put in the pen. It's part of the Gemstone collection. It's one of the most intense blues, well, kind of a blue-purple that I've ever seen. Here's the chromatography dried. I thought there might be some water resistance, but nah, I don't think so. And here you can see a paper towel that I used. It is extremely saturated ink, and it looks good when you write with it. So you can see the pen is fairly wet. It is very smooth. I mean, for a fine nib, it writes as well as any fine nib I've ever used. Very consistent writer. It's a very stiff nib, but I wouldn't expect anything different. And that's fine, because if you want a consistent everyday writer, something you can carry around with you, uncap quickly and write, this pen would be perfect. And a large ink capacity. I didn't give it an official number rating, but we're going to give it a 9.5. The nib gets one check. It just gets a check for being classic design. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing that's going to bring out the wow factor. But not every pen has to wow you. It could just be a reliable everyday writer. And that might be enough. So we reached the end of this video. Thank all of you for watching. I hope this video finds all of you safe, healthy and happy, enjoying your pens, putting some ink on paper, just having fun. We've reached the end of this video, and we're going to say bye. There's too many pens I have to review, and a lot of other things too. I'm a busy guy.